let's try this again. I started one a second ago and my camera froze for a second, but I hope you guys had a great weekend. I know I did. We had went out to some friends for a Super Bowl party. I had a relaxing weekend, and I'm trying to get in and out today because my youngest has half days for parent-teacher conferences all week. So I want to make sure to get these done before he gets home and starts pounding and yelling at the door. Um, so just after the incident, I ended up going home and decompressed for a couple of days, and I progressively kind of got worse. Again, Kenny was with the baby a lot, but I was spending more and more time out and about because I was cooking meth, and the I mean, I knew she was safe with him, so I was just kind of doing whatever I wanted, which wasn't fair to Kenny at all. Um, Eventually, I think me and Kenny were together about a year, and eventually we broke up. I drove him away. I was bored with him because he was um, such a nice guy, and again, that's something that I still feel bad for, especially considering he in the last few years just passed away from cancer. So I had to take my guilt back into account when that happened, and I've come to terms with a lot of the way I was, but I definitely abused him in the way that he was there for me and I was not there for him. So we ended up breaking up. He stayed in the apartment, and I took the baby, and a friend let me stay in her apartment, which she was never at, for a little while. But this was leading up to my downfall for sure. I started um, cooking my own batches, and I was dealing to a lot of the town, and um, I had a lot of money stashed up. I actually, because the guy I was running with was kind of a greedy bastard. I had a teddy bear that I had bought for my daughter, and I cut the neck open and I shoved a lot of cash into there, and I'll tell you how else we got the cash here shortly. But within this couple of months, I figured out that I was not creating a good environment for my daughter, and so I called her aunt and had her come and get her for a little while until I got my shit together, which turned out to be a lot longer than I expected it to be. But it was probably something good in the end anyways. At least she was safe, and at least she was safe and where she needed to be. Now, I know you probably noticed a weird pause in the video. I had to splice two together because for some reason my camera froze again while I was sitting here talking. I probably just have to shut down and restart everything. But anyways, so Amanda came and picked up the baby, and I think that that was one of the guiltiest I've ever felt in my life because me and her were really close. She was almost 2 by this time, and watching her cry for me when she picked her up and walked away with her was very, very difficult, and I still feel terrible about it. I still remember it, and it's something that I don't think I'll ever not feel terrible about at this point. So I ended up basically hitting the streets with this guy, and we eventually fooled around a little bit, but he wasn't really that interested in fooling around. He was more interested in making money, and he approaches me one day, and he was like, "Hey, there is this old lady." Kind of down the road, and they took her to a nursing home, and the house is vacant, but all her stuff is still there, and we're going to loot the house and see what we can find. So he goes and loots the house, and he brings me this checkbook, and he's like, well, you know, we should go buy groceries with these checks. So I go to the grocery store, and I was able to write my ID number on the check and pass a check for groceries, and I got to thinking, like, why are we thinking so small? I mean, if this is free money and she's never going to have access to it and we're not hurting anybody, then why don't we just write checks for cash for items and get them cashed before they catch on? And that started a whole new kind of chapter in my life called money crimes. So I started basically doing the front work on an operation that kind of developed where he would go out with his friends and they would like loot mailboxes for credit card checks or brand new credit cards or IDs that were, brand new IDs that were sent in the mail. And I ended up with about 8 different identifications. And we got all kinds of different checks. We got payroll checks. A friend of ours that was high with us stole her family's checkbook. They owned a couple of small mini marts, so we're able to get a lot of money out of that account, and it kind of just escalated from there. Thousands and thousands of dollars just gone to the wind, gambled, spent on uh, stuff for our dope lab, just wasted money. But the teddy bear ended up getting about a total of $32,000 stuffed into it and sewn back up again. And I was going to use that money and try to get out and get my kid back, but I kept getting roped back in and roped back in. And I know the addicts out there know this, know how hard it is once you get it in your mind that you want to stop, and you have a plan and you make a plan and you do all this stuff for the plan, but you never follow through because you're high. And not getting high is something that is you want to do, but it's incomprehensible how you're going to do it or why or how or where you're going to start, or and it gets confusing and you get lost. And that's about where I was right here. Just lost. And so during this time, and again, my mother still thinks it was me who actually showed up at her house, and no, I did not show up at her house. But I did give information because I was angry at her. And I basically told this guy, well, she deserves to get robbed. She has dogs, but if you just pet them, they're really nice. They act like they're angry, but if you're not scared of them, they won't be. And you could totally get into the house from one of the downstairs windows because most of the time they're not locked. And, just bragging, I did not tell him to go rob her house, and I did not expect him to follow through with it, but he did. He broke in there, stole some checkbooks and some of her jewelry. And then, no, I didn't even know about this. He, not him, but one of his friends calls me because apparently he had called that friend to try to get him to try to get the checks to fly. And his friend calls me and he goes, "Hey, I have this checkbook. I just got it. I want to know if you can get a couple of these checks cashed." I was like, "Well, bring it to me and let me see it." And he brings it to me, and I realize it's my mother's and stepdad's name on the check. So I was like, "Oh yeah, let me have them all." And I had him dig them up, and I grabbed them all from him, and I tore up all the checks, which got me punched in the face, but I didn't care at that point. I did not pass one of my mother's checks. He had some other girl try to. I don't think she succeeded, or if she did, it was for a small amount. But I did have one or two morals still at this point. And I did take responsibility for the fact that it was my fault she got robbed. Nobody ever would have thought to go out there if I hadn't told them where it was and how to get in. I really was just high talking and never expected it to come to anything. And I was seriously pissed off when I found out I did. So got in a huge fight with this guy, and I ended up walking down the street with a duffel bag full of bullshit, and did not know what to do at this point. I had just figured out in silence that I was pregnant with Kenny's baby. Yes, I was getting high at the beginning part until I had figured it out. And yes, I was injecting by this time. This is the guy that I did it with. I only did it a handful of times that way, but I did do it that way. And I had probably done it for about a month and a half, maybe maybe 2 months, while I was pregnant without realizing. As soon as I found out or figured out I was pregnant, I struggled. I was not high when I walked out that day, but I wanted to be more than anything else in the world. I was, we called it dope sick. When you come off of something that you just put in your veins, it makes you physically ill as well as yearning for it at the same time. And I was not okay. And I was just walking exhausted down the road. And that's when I sat down on that step, and that's when I made that prayer and asked for a sign, and that's when the butterfly landed on my foot. And again, that day was life-changing for me. I ended up, of course, not knowing what else to do and going back down the road, back to the guy, and that's when he came up with that payroll check that had been sitting for 3 days, which is too long to hold on to someone's payroll check. And he basically put a gun to my head and gave me a choice if I wanted to die that day or if I wanted to go past that check that I did not want to pass, because I knew it was not going to fly. So I knew I was going to jail that day, and I was okay with it because it was after the butterfly. And I had already come to terms with whatever is going to happen next is because it's supposed to, because I was given a sign in my eyes at least. And so I took the check and I went into the Calneva and I tried to pass it. And I knew by the way they were kind of slowly going, oh, hang on, we just need to check this or that. And it was under one of my fake IDs. My real ID was in my cargo pocket lower, and because I knew I was going down that day. And they came out of the back, and I tried to run, but they converged on me. There was at least 9 or 10 of them coming from all angles, and they were trying to force me down to the ground, but I was screaming at them, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I will come with you, I'm pregnant, I'm not getting down on the ground, I'm pregnant. And they pushed me down to the ground anyway, so I fought them. I fought them hard. I broke a nose, I busted a tooth, and I think I busted someone's jaw that day also. Took, I think, 10 of them to take me down, and every single one of them filed charges, which I was able to beat. But I'll get to that in a second. And they locked me up in what looks like an electric chair, it's made out of wood. It's in their back room. It's got hand and leg shackles and like shoulder harness, and I felt like Hannibal Lecter for a little bit. They pinned me down, they asked me my name, and they kept calling me Elisa Postal, which was the name on the ID, and I told them that is not me. My real ID is in my cargo pocket right down there. So if you'd like my real name, just get my ID out. That's my real name. They looked at my real ID and they looked at the picture of the girl that did not look anything like me on the fake ID, and they said, you're a liar, that's you. So they booked me under the name Elisa Postal, which is how people started calling me Postal. Plus, at that point I was 5150 all the time. So it kind of fit. People actually had to write to me in jail under Elisa Postal until they actually sent me off to prison, because the jail booked me under that name. And so if nobody knew that, I would never get the letters under my real name. It's a weird way they had of doing things back then. I don't know if they still do it the same way now, but odd. So yeah, I went to jail that day, and I was calm. I was okay with it. I was ready. Skinny called me, or not, he didn't call me. I called him on a 3-way in jail. I called his cell phone. I was able to 3-way it with someone helping me out in there, and I told him, I'd already told him ahead of time, if I go down, you might want to just hold on to my stuff, and I will help you. He could have taken the money, and he could have gotten me a lawyer, maybe got me out sooner, maybe did something. But what he decided to do was throw all my stuff in the dumpster. So a teddy bear with $32,000 in it went right into the dumpster. At least I got to laugh at him that day, and I told him, well, you threw away a lot of money that you could have had, so, You know what I said next, but I'm trying to avoid F-bombs on here. um, so yeah, um, with court proceedings, and ad books flying under my door every time they found a new check. I was booked under a total of 38 felonies, and I fought them, and I fought them down to 3. The check that was in my hand, for having it, also for trying to pass it, that's 2 separate charges, and then the probation revocation, for the drug charge, because I was still on probation for that drug charge that me and Wade had gotten a while back. Everything else I was able to beat. They had me on manufacturing, on assault and battery, but I knew the law at that point, and I sat in jail and I read the law, and I was able to beat assault and battery because in the state of Nevada, if you can prove you believe you were protecting your child, you're not liable for any of your actions. At least 20 years ago, Don't know how it is now, but I was able to beat all those charges because casino footage has sound and they could hear me screaming. So I was able to beat a lot of those charges. I had to fight detectives. I knew my fingerprints weren't actually the fingerprints on the checks. I had actually transferred my toe prints with new skin onto my fingers so that my fingerprints never matched up. They couldn't prove any of those checks. The handwriting matched the signatures, because if I can draw a portrait of you, I can easily look at your signature and a couple of practice tries draw your signature. So they weren't able to get me on most of the stuff, or at least to make it stick. And I agreed to plead to the charges, those 3 charges, but that they write into the plea agreement that anything else that comes up, they cannot hold me liable for any crimes, or charge me with any crimes they think I may have committed from that day and beyond before. I literally could have murdered someone, and the way that plea was worded, not that I did, I would never do that, but the way that plea was worded, it would have got me a free walk. And again, I was smart enough to preserve myself, but I knew I was going to prison, and I was okay with it at this time. And I figured, at this point, something's got to give, and maybe this is what needed to happen. I was sad about my daughter being gone, and of course my son being gone still tore me up every day. But I knew that I needed help, and maybe that was the only way I was going to get it. Okay, so that's where I'm leaving you today. I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys liked the story, and don't forget to like and subscribe, share like crazy. We're growing exponentially, but I would like to speed that up a little bit. I'm looking at a couple different ways I can do that, but if you have friends who are interested in my story, please feel free to share my link. And let's get out there. Pretty soon, once I'm through with like the major part of the story, we're gonna start maybe bringing in people once a week, give them a chance to tell their story as well. All right, thanks so much. I love you all, and bye.